Good morning. My name's Daniel Long and I'm a landscape and wildlife photographer based here in the Cairngorms National Park. Today I've come to a small loch not far from my house to do some landscape photography. The conditions are really nice. It's nice and still, and that means the loch has got these wonderful reflections across the water of the forest around it. And there's also a wonderful boathouse which I'm going to head to shortly after I get this first shot down by the loch. My first composition this morning is there's this wonderful tree on the right hand side of the frame. It's a bit larger than the others in the forest, and I'm catching that and a reflection with a light mist moving across the loch, and it looks really nice, really tranquil. I really like it. It's got a bit of colour in the clouds, not too much to be honest, just a little hint of oranges, and the tree itself is wonderfully reflected in the small loch. So what my settings right now is ISO 100 f11 1/8 of a second, and I've got a 0.9 ND grad or 3-stop ND grad on the filter there. That's just to bring in the highlights of the sky a bit, which is quite blown out, but that looks pretty fantastic actually. I really like that. So for this second composition, I'm going again with the reflection theme, but now there's the sun has come up over the trees, and as you can see by my face, it's lighting up this landscape wonderfully. The trees are just capturing this golden light. I don't need to change the settings yet because it's still not quite bright enough to want to increase my shutter speed, but it is wonderfully luminous in the landscape itself. So the same as the last image, it's ISO 100 f11 1/8 of a second with a 3-stop soft grad, just to bring in the highlights of the sky. But I think it looks really good. So I've made it to the boathouse. It's in the shadow of the loch, however. The sun is coming up behind it, so there's a lot of, it's very high contrast. So I'm going to maybe take 2 or 3 exposures and create like a HDR image in Lightroom, I think, because I just can't get the level of range that I want with this sun coming up over the trees over here. So I'm going to first expose for the boathouse, which is ISO 100 f11 1/4 of a second, which is completely blown out the water and the sky. Well, I say the water, the reflection of the sky. So then I'm going to expose for the sky ISO 100 f11 1/160th of a second, and that gives me the clouds and the reflections on the water, which is quite nice. And then I'm going to do one in the middle, 1/40th of a second as well. and then that should give me enough dynamic range to create to merge them in Photoshop or Lightroom, probably Lightroom, and create a balanced image that I'm after. Fingers crossed it comes out the way that I'm seeing in my head. It's always a bit of a pain in the bum to do that sort of thing, but it should work out, and I hope you like it. So I've come round a little bit and I'm doing a second composition with the boathouse. This is more side on, but the reflection is quite nice. I've got the trees of behind the boathouse reflecting nicely on the loch. Again, I'm going to have to try and do an HDR kind of image to get the dynamic range that I want. So to expose for the shadow of the boathouse, it's on ISO 100 f11 0.3 of a second. So I'm just going to take that one, which looks quite nice, but again the sky and the reflection of the sky is completely blown out. So I'm going to decrease the exposure to 1/40th of a second, and that's giving me some nice definition in the clouds. There's still a little bit of clipping, but that's because the sun is right there behind the trees. And then I'm going to split the difference at 1/15th of a second. And so that should give me enough dynamic range between the highlights and the shadows to create a HDR image. I'm going to head to the far side of the loch, around this path around it, try and get the sun behind me, so that I'm working towards the light and not with this backlit situation at the boathouse. I think that I'll be doing some more tree reflections the further round I go, because they look amazing right now. It's perfect conditions. I've made it round to the other side. On this side there's some beautiful pine trees that are on the edge of the shore, which create these wonderful reflections with their trunks, which are very gnarly and rough, and it looks great reflected in the water. So I've picked out this pine tree here. It's got a boulder next to it, which is quite nice, and what I'm trying to do is get the exposure right, which is proving difficult because it's quite bright. So I'm going to take two images and see which one I prefer. One a bit darker and one a bit lighter is the idea. This one's a little bit lighter. It's 1/4 of a second, f11 ISO 100. It's quite nice, but the sky is blown out terribly. So I'm going to reduce it down to 1/10 of a second, which puts everything quite black and silhouetted, but I'm hoping I can do some magic in post-processing to balance it out. We'll just have to see. So I'm going to do a couple more shots around this spot, this wonderful location with the wide angle, and then I'm actually going to switch to my telephoto because I want to get some nice close crop reflections as well. and I'll move the video camera around with me so that it's not boring and static in one shot. So for this next exposure, there on this point, which is why I came round here, there is this wonderful dead birch tree that's got these bracket fungi coming out of it all along the trunk, and it looks really cool. And I wanted to get that as a feature of the image. Now I can't get it as a reflection, it doesn't quite reach out enough to reflect in the water. I'd have to be at a different angle. But it's making a nice little feature jutting through the frame with the reflection of the loch in the background. That's the goal. It looks quite well balanced here. I don't think I'll need to do like a high HDR image for this one. So it's ISO 100, f11, 1/5 of a second, and it looks really nice. I don't mind that bit of white there. As you can see, I've put on my telephoto lens. The tree from earlier, the shot a minute ago, that has that really nice boulder next to it, I'm doing a really close crop reflection shot of that. I wanted to really emphasize the texture of the pine tree and its reflection. And this little cross breeze is quite nice. It's not damaging the image too much. I'm at 200 millimeters. And I'm really cropping in on that tree. F11 still ISO 100 and 1/4 of a second. And that's giving me a nice bright reflection, which I'm really happy about actually. And where this breeze is just coming in, it's caused a ripple effect which has just blurred the reflection. You'll see in a second. It looks quite nice. It looks quite tranquil. Almost like an impressionist painting, almost. So keeping with this painterly reflection shot, there's some nice birch trees over on this side, so I'm just going to... I've switched to landscape, and that way I get several trees dotted through. And they've got a nice little bit of a blur in the reflection due to this light breeze that's coming through now. And it looks quite nice. So f11 ISO 100, 0.3 of a second. So that's it for this video. I've had a good morning. It's been lovely conditions, good reflections, which is what I had in mind for this location when I came here before. That's what popped into my head immediately, was the reflections of these wonderful trees on the loch. And I really like those last few shots with the painterly impressionist reflections. But I think it's gone well. I do think the boathouse would look better at a sunset, so I might come back and shoot that on my own at some point without the camera. I don't want to keep revisiting the same locations. I imagine that would get quite boring. But I do think it will look quite good with some light coming from the west, and it will illuminate the boathouse wonderfully, and that will just I think that will create a better reflection than this pseudo HDR that I'm going to have to do today. But I'm happy that I shot it, and the proof will be in the pudding, which you will be seeing before me, before I talk about all this. So yeah, I think this is a really nice little location here. I must admit that. So I'm happy with what I've got. I'm happy with the shots of the morning. Yeah, I'm not sure what's coming up in the next video. I'll have a think about it. I'm going to do that one in a couple of days, and then maybe I'm hoping later on this week I'll go for a nice hike somewhere and get some decent shots up high somewhere. Depends on the weather a little bit, because it's been very weird weather at the moment. Let me know what you think about the pictures from today. Just comment below. As always, if you want to check out the images as in a bit bigger on your computer screen, then there's a link to my website where you can see the images full size. And if you enjoyed today and enjoyed my other videos recently, don't forget to subscribe. Thanks for watching.